This video contains strong adult language, may not be suitable for children or sensitive people. Boom boom.
Giants stopping the Patriots 18-0. The 2007 New England Patriots were a villainous juggernaut like we'd never seen before. After the writers wrote Randy Moss out of Oakland, he joined Tom Brady and Wes Welker to form a dominant attack that torched and embarrassed opponents. Enter the wild card Giants. Leading man Eli Manning didn't have the movie star good looks of Tom Brady, but he did have the script on his side in Super Bowl 42. You know, it's kind of like casting Pedro Pascal as the Mandalorian. You know, once you see him, it works. So why would the script writers choose to have the underdog Giants upset the mighty Patriots? Wouldn't it make sense to finally shut up Mercury Morris and the 1972 Dolphins? Nah, the moral of the story is that cheaters never prosper. The Spygate storyline established a clear antagonist during the 2007 season, and after public opinion swayed, the writers' room decided they must be stopped. So who was the real hero of the story? In one way it was Eli Manning, but it was a wide receiver by the name of David Tyree, plucked straight out of central casting that would make the most iconic play of Super Bowl 42. Plaxico Burress, who got an early look at the script and leaked the outcome,
we're only gonna score 17 points? Okay.
Caught the game-winning touchdown, though he was disappointed to read that he'd have to shoot himself in the leg a season later.
Hi, I'm Plaxico Burress. Don't mess with handguns, because accidents do happen.
Mans does his own stunts, though. I gotta respect that. Eli toppled Brady, Tyree posted up Rodney Harrison, of course Michael Strahan got to end his NFL arc before he was written off and joined Good Morning America, something he demanded would be written into the script before he came back. Also, hair and makeup won an Emmy for Tom Coughlin in the NFC Championship game. You might be surprised to find MetLife ranked so low on this list, but even as a fan of the team that resides there, it's still a large, impersonal, and cavernous outdoor stadium in a giant parking lot with nothing really out there. Neither the Jets nor the Giants can really call this place their home. And even though other stadiums on this list have the same issues, MetLife overall just isn't that great.
It's always held in really high regard, and I think that just because its seat capacity is so high and it's like a larger stadium. But I agree, like it is very sterile. And it kind of just lacks some of the charm that it oh, like this is where football is played. Also, like really inconvenient to get to. Like they have the giant mall that's there that they built like right around the time they hosted the Super Bowl. But there's like nothing else out there. Obviously, like Manhattan is like, you know, relatively close, but it's kind of a huge pain in the butt to get to. And it's not really around anything else.
Yeah, except for that indoor skiing place, which I would never go to for any.
The Yale Bowl, New Haven, Connecticut. Yes, one of America's oldest stadiums was used to host the New York Giants for over 2 years in 1973 and 1974, while Yankee Stadium was being renovated and Giant Stadium was being built. Not only did the G-Men only win one game here in those 2 seasons, but they had to put up with a nearly 60-year-old stadium at the time, one that didn't have proper concessions, bathrooms, air conditioning, and locker rooms. That's right, the Yale Bowl still has players dress inside the nearby Smilo Field Center, then walk 200 yards, that's 2 football fields, in front of tennis courts and portable toilets to get inside the stadium. Could you imagine that happening today? The Yale Bowl is still active as a stadium for the Ivy League school of the same name, except nobody gives a shit about their football program. New York Giants. Younger Giants fans will point to Jake Fromm as the worst quarterback to ever start a game for Big Blue, but he was tethered to the sneak master Joe Judge. Instead, let's remember Joe Pisarcik, who won just a quarter of his 32 starts in New York in the late 70s, where he's best remembered for fumbling away what was a sure win against the Eagles in the OG Miracle at the Meadowlands. Unborn me is still somehow angry over this. New York Giants, Joe Danello. Sorry, Joe, I'm sure you're a good guy, but the Giants have had some solid kickers throughout the years. I gotta pick somebody. Danello was a sub 60% kicker during his 7 years with the G-Men, including a 1979 campaign where he just made 45% of his attempts. And let's not forget Josh Brown, who was adept at hitting a lot more than the goalpost. New York Giants, Deshaun Jackson. For me, as an individual, it's Donovan McNabb. He would constantly torch the Giants in big games and weasel his way out of sure sacks. However, the collective fan base agrees. Fuck Deshaun Jackson. Jackson constantly burnt the Giants, not just in the miracle at the Meadowlands. He also caught 73 balls for 1,149 yards and 9 TDs, and he did it in a very fuck New York kind of way. The New York Giants. Matt Dodge. Need I say more? Back in 2010, he had one job against the Eagles. Tom Coughlin told him to punt the ball out of bounds and let the game go to overtime. Nope. One Deshaun Jackson punt return later, and my Christmas and honestly my whole life was ruined. Dodge would never play for the Giants again. The New York Giants, John Mara. Here we go. Mara hasn't been an awful owner, but he has made some perplexing decisions the last, 8 years or so, like hiring Dave Gettleman and a slew of bad coaches like Pat fucking Shermer, and knocking over trash cans. To be fair, Mara has won 2 Super Bowls in his time as CEO, along with co-owner Steve Tisch, but overall he's actually 144, 162, and 1. The New York Giants, in between Tom Coughlin and Brian Daboll, there laid the dark days for the New York Giants. In fact, I'm not sure we're out of the woods yet with Daboll, but I know for sure he's better than the 3 guys who came before him. Coughlin's successor was Ben McAdoo in his Walmart haircut and oversized suit, who, believe it or not, actually managed to lead the Giants to a playoff game in 2016, but was the man who presided over the infamous boat picture. He also had the bad sense to bench Eli Manning for Geno Smith, and this is pre-revival Geno Smith. Then reversed course after just one game, snapping Eli's streak of 210 straight starts for no fucking good reason. But compared to Pat Shermer and Joe Judge, he might as well have been a football savant. Shermer had already proved in Cleveland that he wasn't worthy of leading a football team. You're telling me this face doesn't inspire confidence? And Joe Judge was the master of the untimely quarterback sneak. At least Shermer had experience. Judge was merely the special teams coach in New England. And also by that time, we all had plenty of evidence that if you plucked a coach from the Belichick tree, you deserved what you got, like inviting the Joker onto your talk show. Brian Daboll had an excellent start to his tenure in 2022, winning the first playoff game in New York since Super Bowl 46, but the hype was tempered considerably just a year removed. The New York Giants. The Giants actually won the Odell Beckham trade, hands down, but why it was their worst isn't for what they got, it's for what it signaled. In 2019, the Giants traded OBJ for a first, a third, and Jabril Peppers. Though Peppers was often injured and slow as fuck, the Giants turned their picks into Dexter Lawrence and O'Shane Jimenez. Lawrence is still their best lineman. Despite the gains, the trade said that the Giants were going to suck for a long, long time, which 5 years later, they still do. New York Giants, Dave Gettleman. Well, what can I say? Of course it's Dave Gettleman. A lot of uninformed Giants fans put a lot of blame on Jerry Reese, but he inherited a situation and didn't mess it up. Gettleman was charged with a rebuild that never happened. Let's see, Fat Dave drafted Daniel Jones, Saquon way too high, bust DeAndre Baker, and hired idiot coaches Pat Shermer and Joe Judge. He traded away Odell Beckham and drafted Kadarius Toney. Here we are. We're at the Giants, the 20th pick. They take Kadarius Toney. I'm gonna freaking.
With the 20th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Kadarius Toney, wide receiver of Florida.
He then went and signed bust Golden Tate and Kenny Galladay, who made about as many catches as married guys receive blowjobs. Duval or Rice Stadium hosting the big game was an anomaly, then Super Bowl 48 was definitely a one-off. The NFL got very lucky that an unseasonably warm evening allowed the game to be unaffected by the weather. No, the only thing that sucked on that night was the Broncos. The MetLife turf is still awful and will be upgraded to grass for the upcoming World Cup, but not for either of the 2 NFL teams that play there. Priorities, yo. The New York Giants. The most controversial thing to hit the Giants since John Mara knocked over some trash cans was Lawrence Taylor smoking crack. He was suspended for 30 days in 1988 for drug policy violations, and honestly, Taylor has been involved in multiple incidents with both prostitutes and drugs that have largely been swept under the rug because he was the greatest linebacker in NFL history, and that's all that matters. 2-time Super Bowl winning champion, Lawrence Taylor. The NFC East. The New York Giants, the infamous boat picture in 2017. Ah, yes, the boat picture, where players were seen partying on a boat days before their wild card game against the Packers. The Giants lost 38-13 with key receivers including Odell Beckham Jr. dropping crucial passes. The image became a symbol of immaturity and lack of focus, leading to a disappointing 3-13 season the following year. Tom Coughlin would be unceremoniously dismissed and Eli Manning would get benched as the Giants carted out 3 head coaches whose collective IQ was 3, and that's being generous. New York Giants. As a Giants fan, losing Super Bowl 35 was pretty heartbreaking. However, that at least was the Super Bowl. To me, the worst loss for Big Blue was in 2008 to the Eagles as the Giants dominated all year and then got smoked in their own building. They had no offense that game because their best receiver shot himself before the game. I'm still angry over that shit. The New York Giants, 1974, going 2-12, the Giants hit a low point in a season that felt doomed from the start. They played home games at the shitty Yale Bowl, which only added to the surreal sense of disconnection from their fan base. The Yale Bowl is in Connecticut and does not have locker rooms. The team was directionless with a weak offense and a defense that couldn't stop the Rizzler from rizzing. Well, at least one of their 2 wins came against Dallas. Yeah, back when the Giants could beat Dallas. Joe Judge, New York Giants. When Joe Judge was hired by the New York Giants in 2020, just like a lot of our behavior at the time, it made no sense, like wearing masks during sex. Fresh off of back-to-back idiot coaches in New Jersey, Ben McAdoo and Pat Shurmur, most Giants fans figured they would go with a veteran head coach or someone with some head coaching experience at some level. After Matt Rule turned down the Giants for a huge bag from the Panthers because they stupidly offered him more money, the Giants announced they would be hiring Joe Judge, a little-known special teams coordinator and wide receiver coach for the Patriots. Sure, Judge was part of 3 Super Bowl winning teams, but to elevate him from special teams coordinator to head coach of the New York Giants just because he sniffed a few of Bill Belichick's farts was wild. Of course, it ended in absolute disaster with his first season going 6-10, and then his second season where he famously called a sneak on 3rd and 9 from his own goal line, prompting fans to call him a bitch out loud. How he got to coach 2 years is beyond me. He was fired after the 2021 season and held a pizza party to celebrate, which is hilarious irony if you've ever worked in corporate America. Judge immediately limped back to the Patriots a la Josh McDaniels as an assistant and is now a senior analyst for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, where his son is a football commit there. New York Giants, what a year, eh? Going all in on Daniel Derp Jones and then acting surprised when it didn't work out. Then they fucking cut him in week 9. The guy didn't even make 2 full years of his deal. I don't know who is to blame more though, him sucking ass or the Giants front office not recognizing that he sucked ass. He was about as effective as this 2-point conversion. Oh, and Saquon, it's not like he's gonna rush for 2,000 yards, is it?
Hello?
Saquon.
Yeah, what's up?
This clip will forever live in Giants infamy. Put it in the fucking Louvre, an entire wing dedicated to incompetence. La Ghettoman.
I'm gonna have a tough time sleeping if Saquon goes to Philadelphia, I'll tell you that.
And after finding amazing ways to lose games, like your kicker getting injured and not giving up a TD and still losing, to fumbling in OT against a 1-win team, to getting a field goal blocked against the Saints, to not winning a single division game, only to go out and beat a Colts team to fuck up your tank. After all of that, to bring back Dable and Shane and act like organizational stability is the thing we need. Fucking laugh out loud. I've heard better jokes in a Brendan Schaub special.
Dicey.
Fuck this team. Fuck me for being a fan, and fuck all of you. Your team sucks. MetLife Stadium. MetLife Stadium was opened in 2010, and to say it's been nothing short of a cursed disaster is an understatement. Let's first start with the turf, which was recently upgraded in 2023, but that doesn't change the fact that it was well known that NFL players hate the carpet at MetLife, and it is an injury waiting to happen. Because the stadium is owned by an entity separate from the Jets and the Giants, they initially went cheap on the playing surface. In 2020, the turf monster claimed multiple 49ers to season-ending injuries in a 2-week span, with Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas tearing ACLs right in front of our eyes. Then there was the Aaron Rodgers second snap ever in New Jersey, and Jalen Phillips. Here is a partial list since just 2020 of terrible injuries. Solomon Thomas, Jimmy Garoppolo, Raheem Mostert, Sterling Shepard again, Wan'Dale Robinson, Blake Martinez, Shane Lemieux, Jabril Peppers, Kyle Fuller, and Al Woods. The fact that MetLife is built on top of a New Jersey swamp has nothing to do with how bad the turf is, but maybe that muddy earth along with Jimmy Hoffa's body somewhere brings some type of curse to the stadium. There have also been cursed incidents like in 2012 when a man fell 3 stories from an escalator after a Giants game where he was critically injured. I wonder if he fell or if he jumped. I mean, he is a Giants fan. Oh, let's not forget about the teams that play in MetLife. Yes, the Giants hosted and won a single playoff game there in 2012. And that is the only playoff game to be hosted here in the stadium's entire history. Look it up. The Jets in 2010 played all their playoff games on the road. 2 teams, twice as many chances, and 1 fucking playoff game. The Jets are experiencing the longest playoff drought in their history. Even the Super Bowl that was played here sucked. A blowout in the era of parity. The Jets are 55-68-1 in MetLife, and the Giants 57-67. Oh, and let's not forget the butt fumble happened here. The New York Giants. Ah, yes, the story of the New York Giants, one that has me blue in the face. After Eli Manning faded away harder than Skip Bayless, the Giants needed to rebuild the franchise. So they took Daniel Jones with the number 6 overall pick, and him combined with Saquon Barkley actually made the playoffs in 2022 and won a playoff game. Mind you, the level of losing it took to get to that one fucking playoff win was more painful than sitting through an entire hour of network TV. 5 consecutive 6-win or less seasons and 1 blip of a 9-7-1 season, and then right back to losing. Even worse, the Giants thought they did the smart move of choosing Daniel Jones over Saquon, but of course it backfired like eating Indian food right before sitting front row center at a 3-hour play that has no intermission. Of course, like a lot of failed rebuilds, giving one player $40 million a year while watching key parts of your defense walk away or be traded away due to cap constraints like Xavier McKinney, Julian Love, Leonard Williams, James Bradbury, etc. But the Jones investment especially sucked when that player sucked and you ended up cutting him after less than 2 years. I mean, who wouldn't have had the forethought to think that the league would shift strategies and put 2 safeties high and make talented running backs relevant again? Surely not an NFL team that is playing in the NFL. Even worse, the Giants couldn't even lose right, and now they have the number 3 overall pick and will likely miss out on one of the top 2 QBs in the draft, further extending the rebuild probably another 2 to 3 years, maybe even longer. Fucking sad. Speaking of grounds, Polo Grounds, New York, New York. The Polo Grounds are known for being one of the weirdest baseball configurations of all time, but it was a weird place in general. Originally opened in 1880, it then went through 4 iterations, each time being given a new name. Polo Grounds 1, Polo Grounds 2, Polo Grounds 3, and you guessed it, Polo Grounds 4. Don't we miss the good old days when we used to name shit what it was instead of something dumb like Rate Field? Ironically, they never played polo in the Polo Grounds. And much like that furniture store that said it was going out of business and everything must go, only to have that same sale a year later, this means my whole life was a lie. Opposite of fun fact, 2 people died in the Polo Grounds. Ray Chapman, who was hit by a pitch, and fan Bernard Doyle, who was hit by a stray bullet in 1950. And sorry, I don't have enough time to give you context for that. Anywho, the stadium was configured for football, and the New York Giants played here for 30 years, but as soon as the baseball Giants left for California, the football Giants moved into another baseball stadium, Yankee Stadium. The Polo Grounds sat abandoned for 5 years until the New York Titans, later the Jets of the AFL, played here from 1960 to 1963. The Jets then left to play at Shea Stadium because the Polo Grounds were woefully old at that point. That was the last straw, and the cursed Polo Grounds were demolished in 1964. It's now the site of some ominous looking apartments. The New York Giants. OBJ's one-handed TD is one of the most athletic and unreal plays in NFL history. However, as a Giants fan, it's pretty easy to pick the most iconic touchdown. Manning to Burris in Super Bowl 42. If you are a Giants fan and this doesn't give you chills, you probably are a casual. New York Giants. Oh wait, did a couple miracles at the Meadowlands happen? Like, surely this is the only NFL team that fucked up in the last minute of a game multiple times, isn't it? Bringing that up is about as ubiquitous as a free medium soda. Oh, I have a good one, calling the Giants the Midgets. It's like the opposite of a giant. I'm so clever and not a hack. MetLife Stadium, East Rutherford, New Jersey. MetLife replaced Giant Stadium, which at times was called the Meadowlands. You know, when that other team played there. Giant Stadium was built upon land in East Rutherford that was mostly swamp and industrial. That seems fitting.
New York Giants, 2011 Eli Manning. Again, not really much of a choice here. 2011 was Eli Manning's clear-cut best season, as he threw for nearly 5,000 yards with 29 touchdown passes and a solid 92.9 passer rating with great yards per attempt and adjusted net yards per attempt numbers. But again, with Eli, it was about the postseason, as he finished 4-0 with over 1,200 yards passing, 9 touchdown passes and interception, and once again winning over Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, a game in which he completed 75% of his throws for nearly 300 yards, a touchdown, and a 103.7 passer rating as the Giants won 21-17. He also couldn't have done it without Kyle Williams. New York Giants. Most of this video features franchises who did not win as much as they should have, but the Giants are the opposite. They have 4 Super Bowl rings and 5 Super Bowl appearances while playing in the biggest media market in the world, so they get hyped up as a blue blood franchise when really they're the NFL version of the Florida Marlins. Every once in a while they fluke their way to a Super Bowl win before reverting back to being dog shit for prolonged stretches of time. In the 57 seasons of the Super Bowl era, the Giants have missed the playoffs 40 times. That's 70% of the time, by the way. They've won their division just 8 times. They've made the NFC Championship game just 5 times. They've won a playoff game in only 10 seasons. They are 22nd out of 32 teams in win-loss percentage. Even since just 1986, the period in which they've won 4 rings, they're only 16th out of 32 teams in win-loss percentage. They are not an iconic franchise. They are a crap franchise with some fluke runs. Daniel Jones is still awful, and nothing Giants say will ever change that. Saquon Barkley is a shiny new television in a burning building. It's cool to look at, but ultimately useless. Giants fans love taking the moral high ground over Eagles fans while they praise Lawrence Taylor, aka a guy who is a drug addict and a pedophile. Eli Manning was an average as fuck quarterback whose entire legacy is based on 2 games where he led his offense to under 20 points both times. He also tried to pass off fake memorabilia as legit and belongs nowhere near the Hall of Fame unless it's as a visitor. Fuck the New Jersey Giants. That is your realness. New York Giants. It's pretty obvious that the people who came up with the name Giants did not care about short people and their feelings. The name Giants is especially offensive to short people like Peter Dinklage, Gary Coleman, you name it. Just so many people who are unfairly discriminated against because of their lack of height, and the Giants do not do anything to help that. They need to change their name immediately. New York Giants, Daniel Jones. There were a lot of players to pick from here, like Kadarius Toney, for example, but I went with Daniel Jones because the Giants basically bet the farm on this guy by picking him 6th overall in 2019 to be the future franchise quarterback, to be the next Eli Manning, and after a somewhat respectable rookie season, the guy just has been crap. He's been one of the worst quarterbacks in the league every year. There was that fluky 2022 run where he started running the ball and it kind of caught teams off guard, but they got used to it. Through 5 seasons, he has a record of 22, 36, and 1, 62 touchdowns, 40 interceptions. He's also famous for fumbling. He has 46 fumbles in his career thus far, and he is really just one of the lower tier quarterbacks in the NFL, and I don't know how the hell he still has a starting job. That just goes to show you how terrible the Giants are as an organization. New York Giants, Joe Pisarcik, 1977. Pisarcik is famous for his fumble late in a game versus the Eagles when the Giants had the game locked up, and instead of taking a knee, he tried to hand the ball off and he lost it, and it was returned for a touchdown. But don't make that the only thing that he's known for. He should be known for also being a terrible rookie quarterback in 1977 on a terrible Giants team. Pisarcik's 1977 season saw him complete under 43% of his throws with 4 touchdowns to 14 interceptions with a 42.3 rating. He also took 32 sacks, so his pocket presence really wasn't much to brag about either. Really nothing to brag about, honestly, if you really look at it. He just sucked all around. But as an Eagles fan, I appreciate him helping us get that win. New York Giants. Oh, the Giants. What can I make fun of the Giants for? Well, nobody, much like with the Saints and other terrible teams now, nobody that's a Giants fan is really going to be offended by me saying that they suck, because guess what? Everybody knows that. So you think back to less sucky times, and that's what we got. Eli Manning. Giants fans basically live at this point for Eli Manning to get into the Hall of Fame. And I was so happy when Eli Manning didn't make the Hall of Fame on the first ballot a couple days before my Eagles won their second Super Bowl. So now Giants fans can't say that Eli Manning has more rings than our franchise. They can say that Eli has as many rings as our franchise, but that doesn't hit the same, and everybody knows it. So anyway, I was so glad Eli didn't make the Hall of Fame, because he wasn't deserving of it. You just look at, and I swear to God, I understand that there's more to the game than stats, but you look at Eli Manning, he's right there with Jacoby Brissett and Sam Darnold and Case Keenum and Mac Jones and Trevor Lawrence. And I know people are going to say, oh, well, Eli played in a different era. Not really. He fucking retired in 2019, dude. Okay, he wasn't playing in the 80s and 90s. He was playing in this era. Passer rating, his numbers were dog shit. He led the league in intercept 3 times. And the other thing about Eli Manning and why people say, oh, you can't call his 2 Super Bowl runs flukes because it happened twice. Well, actually, yes, I can, because every other time he made the playoffs, which wasn't very often, by the way, he went one and done, and his numbers were horrible. Outside of 07, 2011, over a 15-year span, he literally did nothing in the playoffs. Jack shit. Florida Marlins of the NFL. And aside from Eli Manning, Lawrence Taylor, who Giants fans idolize, is, or at the very least was, a convicted pedophile and just a terrible person overall. So fuck Lawrence Taylor, fuck the Giants, you guys suck, and I hate all of us. New York Giants, 1956. In 1956, the Giants drafted Hall of Fame linebacker Sam Huff. They also drafted Jim Katkovich, who was a 3-time Pro Bowler and a 2-time first-team All-Pro. Don Chandler, a fullback, was a Pro Bowler, and Ron Neary was a All-Pro player as well at defensive end, although he didn't play for that long. For as much hype as the Giants get, and I always gleefully point out how overrated they are as a franchise, there aren't that many great draft classes that they've had, and this is the only one I can find that had some sort of depth to it, where you have a Hall of Famer, another All-Pro, and a couple more Pro Bowlers. After Neary in the round 7, the rest of their picks, really not much to show for it, except for Jerry Huth, who was a 6-time starter. But yes, this draft was a reason why the Giants were an elite team in the 50s and early 60s. New York Giants, Kenny Golladay, 2021. When the Giants signed Golladay in 2021 to a 4-year, $72 million contract with $28 million guaranteed, they were banking on him continuing to improve from his impressive tenure in Detroit, and that is not what happened at all, which is hilarious. They thought that he was going to make Daniel Jones into a great quarterback. What a stupid fucking franchise. Golladay lasted all of 2 seasons in New York, catching 1 touchdown pass. Yes, $72 million, $28 million guaranteed for 1 touchdown catch, and you wonder why the Giants continue to remain a joke, much like their other New Jersey brother. New York Giants, Kayvon Thibodeau. It's really now or never for the former 5th overall pick. He looked to be heading in the right direction after improving from 4 sacks as a rookie to 11.5 sacks in 2023, but then last year he was injured and he fell to just 5.5 sacks and recorded just 28 tackles. Basically, he regressed and got injured. When you get picked 5th overall, especially at a position like defensive end, you are supposed to be a future superstar, all-pro type of player, and Thibodeau has not been that. Even though Dexter Lawrence is arguably the best interior lineman in the league, to take pressure off of him, he hasn't produced like it. And quite honestly, because the Giants don't really have a lot of young talent outside of Malik Neighbors, I went with this guy because if he's ever going to live up to the hype, it's gotta be this year. New York Giants, Andrew Thomas. How do you find an overrated player for a team that everybody thinks and agrees is dog shit, even fans of that team? Well, I went with Andrew Thomas because he's actually one of the few players on the Giants roster that, at one point or another, has actually shown the ability to be a good NFL player. The problem is that after being named 2nd team All-Pro in 2022, he's dealt with a lot of injuries over the last 2 seasons, appearing in just 16 games total. Now, he's a former 4th overall pick. He's 6'5", 315 pounds. The talent has always been there, but again, like a lot of my other choices, doesn't matter how talented you are if you're on the sidelines. When you're on the sidelines, you're no better than some drunk guy in the stands at the end of the day, if you really look at it. So Andrew Andrew Thomas, I guess just by default, is the most overrated Giants player because he's one of the few big names and one of the few actually talented players in the Giants that hasn't produced over the last several seasons because of injuries. But he still is only just 26 years old, so hopefully he has plenty of career left ahead of him.
It is the right move to see what you have on your roster when you're hopelessly out of it and you have an aging, declining quarterback. But is it the right move to play Geno Smith?
According to multiple reports, the Giants have cut ties with McAdoo before the end of his second season in charge. General manager Jerry Reese has also been fired, according to numerous reports.
It is my great pleasure to introduce the new general manager of the New York Giants, Dave Gettleman.
Derp, 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 derp. Derp 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 derp
The New York Giants select Daniel Jones.
Oh my fucking God! Oh my fuck! You gotta be fucking kidding me! Oh no! 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 They did not take Daniel Jones! Are you fucking kidding me?
My plan is to come in here every day and kick ass. That's my plan. Okay? And I'm going to keep doing it until they either take my key card or the Lord calls me home.